my calculations are correct, when this baby hits 88 miles per hour, you're gonna see some serious
Greetings once again, my friends, and welcome back to another episode of Geek News Movie Night, where we take a film and analyze it, give the highs, the lows, and everything in between. I'm your host, Em Nicholson, aka Drac. I hope everybody's having an awesome day or night when you're listening to this. And of course, here is my lovely wife, Andrea, because we're not quite done with you yet, Andrea. No, we're not. Because people might remember we went on vacation a while back, and we watched a butt ton of movies. And now we're in movie 3. And this one, I honestly have no problem saying it's probably the worst one that we watched. Today we're going to be reviewing Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood, the Sacred Star of Milos. So, for those who are not aware, Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood is the manga actual telling of the story, and this movie went alongside of it, except unlike the other film that went with the 2003 series, Conqueror of Shambhala, this one was based more in the middle of the story. It's one of those classic shonen type movies where it's not really based in the canon, so that at that point they don't have to explain how characters are developing and make people go watch a movie. Instead, you just watch the entire manga. But since you had watched Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood, and I had said that there was a movie to it, you wanted to watch it. So at that point, we set aside some time and we watched The Sacred Star of Milos. And, well, before we get into our thoughts here, let me go ahead and give a quick summary, because I actually forgot to do that for the first two movies. Sorry, guys. But let's go ahead and do this. This is coming from IMDb. This is just a quick plot summary. In the lost holy land of Milos, the Elrics search for the truth behind an unknown form of alchemy. What secrets are hidden in Milos? Riddles must be solved and dangers faced before the truth can be found. And so walking into this film, I have no problem saying that I just had never seen it, because we were just so backed up on things that we wanted to watch that a side movie of Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood just kind of wasn't on the radar for me. When I watched Brotherhood all the way through, like, that was more than enough. I got more than enough of what I wanted out of that. Unlike the 03 series, where Conqueror of Shambhala actually does add something on to the plot. You don't need it, but it definitely does add something on, and I liked it. How are you feeling about this film walking into it, now that you had seen Brotherhood?
Well, how come we didn't see the other one?
Because it's tied to the 03 series.
Okay.
Again, different stories.
Okay.
After a while, in 03, the story begins to diverge, because at that point, the manga hadn't been completely written.
Yeah, I remember that, but
Conqueror of Shambhala is not based in the manga ending. It is based in the 03 ending.
Oh, okay.
So that's why we haven't watched it yet, and trust me, guys, we will get there. But the fact that you found out after watching Brotherhood and you liked it, you liked it a lot, and then you found out there was a movie, like, how excited were you to watch the movie?
I was okay with it. I mean,
I know that, like, with the Pokemon movies, you went out of your way to go watch those, because, you know, you're just that much of a Pokemon fan. Obviously, you watch the Harry Potter films, and when you found out that there were Inuyasha films, you were interested in that too.
Yeah.
But I want to say, aside from that, like, getting you invested into an anime movie, I almost want to say the anime has to be compelling enough for you to actually care about it. Because I'm guaranteeing you, if there's like a movie to, like, Flint the Time Detective, I don't know if you would want to go see it. I'm throwing out a random one, but like, yeah, I don't know if you would actually be interested in that. But I mean, I don't want to talk for you, so
yeah.
So walking into this, you were excited to see, like, what it would do?
Yeah, I was still fine with it.
Okay. And after watching it, really quick, what were your thoughts after watching it?
It was different, but I don't go with in high expectations.
I want to say like this was your first atypical shonen movie that you'd ever seen.
Yeah.
So at that point, I don't know. Did you know what you were expecting?
No.
Like a lot of people can say, oh, well, and I actually saw this discussion online, like Star of Milos is basically the same as like any Naruto or Bleach movie. Congratulations, she's never watched Bleach or Naruto, so there's no comparison there. I've seen the Dragon Ball movies, the Dragon Ball Z movies, and those are great, but they're great in the fact that they're not canon. So at that point, you're okay with what you saw.
I mean, what do you mean is shonen?
I'm more talking about the stereotypical type of movie.
Yeah.
So shonen is a type of anime in Japan that is primarily marketed to kids, but frankly, there are a bunch of adults in otaku that love it. Those are usually the same otaku who love tokusatsu, so Kamen Rider, Sentai, all that stuff. But usually, the shonen movies are not associated with the canon of the story, because usually it's somebody who's not, like, they're not even referring to the mangaka in those, like the creator in those cases. It's just a movie director going, oh, this series has some hype. Let's go drive that hype and make money, kind of thing. And so what they do is they make like this one-off story. You go off to this bizarre land you'll never hear about again, and the characters will interact with it, but there's not really any development of the characters because we can't mess up the continuity of the original series. And so we can't have them coming to like epiphanies that they come to 10 episodes later, kind of thing. And so at that point, like a lot of shonen type movies aren't necessarily canon. There are few exceptions, but that is the exception, not the rule. The rule is it's never associated, and what happens in that is maybe cool, maybe not, but it'll never get referenced later. And as you saw with Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood, they never referenced this story.
Oh, okay.
So that's basically what a shonen type story is. You kind of know this because you watch Pokemon. It's not like they refer to Mewtwo, or they're meeting with Mewtwo out in now granted, the movie said that they all forgot about it, but they don't actively go out and let's give an example of, like, they don't talk about the events of Lugia after Pokemon the movie 2000, kind of thing, because the movies are their own thing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think
So it's kind of your first, but not really. So you thought it was okay.
Yeah.
You thought it was okay. I was not in that camp. I was very bored very quickly. And by the end of the movie, I was laughing at it. And it's primarily because not a whole lot happens in this movie until the very end, when they decide to basically throw a bunch of exposition and plot twists right out the frickin' window. And it's just like, oh, yeah, okay. But let me give a quick summary of the plot for those who want to say, like, I'm not giving it its credit. The Fullmetal Alchemist and brother go to, I think it's West City, which is supposed to be, I don't think it's called the town of Milos. It's,
One eternity later.
Okay, sorry about that. I had to put in the Monty Python music while I had to go and discover a lot of this stuff because, again, the plot is so freaking forgettable. The movie is based in a place called Table City, and I believe it's in the western part of the map of Amestris, where we never go. So, like, the eastern part of the map, I believe, is where Rizambul is, so we interact a lot with the eastern portion of Amestris. We mess around a little bit in the northern part of Amestris, obviously, because that's where we meet General Armstrong. I can't talk today. General Armstrong. You know, the one that isn't twinkly. The one that has a sword that she likes to shove in places. Wow, that came out really wrong. And I'm trying to remember if we actually interact with the South. I don't think we do in there, because a lot of the towns that we come across in the meantime, they're kind of like middle towns. I think the closest to the west that we get is, I can't remember the name of the town, but it's like the first episode of 03. It's the City of Faith, where they have the Prophet Cornello and all of the people there. I think that's the closest to the west we deal with. Actually, no, that would be east, because that's where that's also where the Scar's one of them, and I can't remember what they're called. Ishvalan. That's where the Ishvalans were, and this is like a border town with that. So, like, we never really interact with this, but Table City has apparently a bunch of lore surrounding it that we don't really explore until the end of the movie. Basically, many wars have been fought for Table City because before Amestris stepped in, it was a religious city based around the faith of Milos and the Sacred Star. And unfortunately, what happened is Amestris built the city, or built it into Table City, and then eventually exiled all of the believers down into the valley below and made them into kind of a second-class citizen. And so at that point, the Elric brothers come in because they come across a guy who matches a description of a war prisoner by the name of, I don't think they actually know his name at this point. He goes by a code name. And the last time he was seen was in Table City alongside another rebel who we know by the name of Julia Crichton. So they go and investigate it. Turns out the vigilante, so to speak, is her brother Ashley, as in like Ashley Riot. Guys, don't. It's anime. They like to find unique names,
especially for when you think it's not a female, it's a male.
Well, the first thing that comes to my mind is Ashley Riot from the video game Vagrant Story, because like in some cultures, Ashley can actually be like a male name. It's just weirdly spelled. But yeah, so the story does center around these two because their mother and father were alchemists and were mysteriously murdered after they came across a major breakthrough about the Sacred Star of Milos. And it turns out, spoiler alert everybody, it's the Philosopher's Stone. They found a way to make the Philosopher's Stone. Oh no! Because everybody figured out how to make a Philosopher's Stone. I'm kind of surprised that they didn't know about the giant transmutation circle that made up the nation. So Edward and Alphonse get involved in this war. They bounce back and forth a lot, and then we get to deal with kind of the inner workings of Table City and the corrupt military that runs it, as well as the opposing military force from the opposing nation, whose name is escaping me, and their attempts to try and invade to regain Table City, as well as the resistance, which Julia Crichton is part of, that is trying to reclaim the heritage of the Star of Milos, aka the Philosopher's Stone. And so a lot of this plot is slow building, and then at the very end, we get a bunch of twists, and it just becomes ridiculous at that point. So should I reveal those twists before we get into likes and dislikes?
Well, don't you usually?
I don't want to be spoiler heavy, but this movie has been out since 2011. So that's kind of past my point. If it's beyond 5 years, you're screwed. So basically we have a surprise. Julia's brother is actually a military officer that never got any kind of focus whatsoever, and he literally stole Ashley's face and also stole the tattoo on Ashley's side so that he could then make the Philosopher's Stone with Julia's part of the tattoo. That's the first surprise. Second surprise is, so we're immediately assuming at this point that Julia's brother Ashley is dead. Surprise! Ashley is actually not dead. He actually rose up in the ranks of the opposing military and became one of their leading generals and commanders of all of their wolf, I was about to say homunculi, but that's not right. Their wolf chimeras, which apparently he was supposed to outrun while being injured as a kid, holding Julia. Explain that to me. Oh, and also, so he has to wear a mask the entire time because his face was taken by the other guy, and so he couldn't reach out to Julia and just tell her, oh yeah, it's me, by the way. Surprise, the Philosopher's Stone is made, and even though Julia has been rife with conflict about whether or not to use it, she literally swallows it. And she was already a big Mary Sue throughout most of the movie. She turns into super duper Mary Sue during all of this. Am I wrong?
No.
She literally ingests it and she becomes God. When she realizes the horrible actions that her brother committed, she has no problem killing him until he's actually dead. And then she's like, I'm gonna be Jesus and I'm gonna resurrect ya. All the while during this whole thing, Edward and Alphonse are basically all just screaming, no, please don't. You'll regret it. You have to use so many lives to create a philosophy. They're not really involved in the plot whatsoever. And so she resurrects her brother, but loses her leg in the process because she finally sees the gate. Even though she was using Philosopher's Stone, she didn't have to exchange anything. So that's absolutely funny. What?
Did he die or did he get severely injured?
He died. He basically was on death's door.
Okay.
When she resurrected him. And she also was able to somehow repair his face and his side so that he could actually be himself again. And then Edward and Alphonse leave, and this is never, ever, ever mentioned again. I'm literally not kidding you guys. All of these revelations happen within the last 30 to 40 minutes of the film. And this film is how long? Let me just double check. Oh, 111 minutes. It's just under 2 hours. So, yeah, this is a typical shonen movie, and it does not do any justice to Fullmetal Alchemist as a franchise, but it's all right because the fans just literally don't acknowledge it. So, what did this movie do right, Andrea?
Oh, it was just a standalone movie.
One of the things that shonen type movies like this are known for, and I have no problem saying this because it excelled in it too, were the fight scenes. Like the action scenes were probably the best thing out of this whole dang movie, although some of the fight scenes were kind of questionable as in some cases they moved way too fast to be able to keep track of. But that's what you're basically saying, is the spectacle part of this movie was enjoyable to you.
Well, yeah, it's just I didn't go in with like high expectations, like it was gonna over.
No, you're not a critic.
What?
You're not a critic. You don't do that.
I wasn't gonna just say that the movie was gonna surpass like Brotherhood, but
this is part of why I love you, because you're not immediately going, this movie sucks. But if a movie is bad, you will say it. Like I will say this for the record. She has said it was bad before. Because I remember when we went and saw the movie Vampires Suck, it was the Twilight parody movie, and you were like, yeah, I want to go see that, and then we watched it and you're like, yeah, that wasn't great. So it does happen, is what I'm trying to say. Okay, so that's a positive for you. I tend to agree. I think the fight scenes were pretty good. When you could actually follow them. Near the end, it got really hard to follow them because of all of the weird shit that was going on. A positive for me was thinking. I did like how Table City looked.
mm-hmm.
I like the fact that basically they had what was the city's name in Avatar? Omashu? Where they had like that postal system.
Wait, are we talking about the slide things?
Yeah. That's how they delivered food and goods and all that across the city. Table City had something closer to that, but it was more like a roller coaster.
Yeah, but for some reason I keep thinking it's... Well, I guess it's Omashu, but I don't know.
I think it's Omashu, because it was the one that Boomy ran. It wasn't the
Not the Earth
Ba Sing Se. It was not that. It was a smaller city.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I was thinking it kind of felt like it reminded me of Final Fantasy VII.
Midgar?
Maybe. You know, like how it had the different levels or something.
Yeah.
Maybe
that's Midgar.
That's why I keep thinking.
Yeah, you've only ever seen 7 remakes, so the only thing you've seen is Midgar.
Well, that's the only thing that comes to mind.
Okay. So I'll give credit to that. A lot of the animation was fairly good. The only time I got kind of annoyed with the animation was when the fight scenes got too fast. Then it was very difficult to kind of figure out what was going on, especially when it came to the wolf chimeras. The wolf chimeras, they had to give this illusion that they were all fast. So like people hate this, and I don't tend to hate it as long as it's not done too much, where they start to blur things in order to make it look like things are moving faster than they are. Because to some people it looks like sloppy animation, but to me it's like, okay, well, you're moving so super fast that you're not going to be able to get every detail. You're moving way too fast, so I'm okay with it. Other positives,
I really did like the wolf chimeras.
I thought they were interesting. I thought that they should have transformed a lot more, because it was actually cool when they introduced them in the train and they transformed. I'm like, that's kind of cool. And from there on in, they were just the wolf chimeras. They never transformed again, but wouldn't it have been cool if like one of them snuck into the rebel headquarters and transformed right there? Mm-hmm. So I will give you that. I have no other positives for this. Any other positives for you?
Nope.
Okay, let's get into the negatives, shall we? What did this film do wrong? Exposition dumps and plot dumps literally half an hour before the movie ends.
Yeah, probably too heavy on the ending.
Like you and me were laughing at them by the end of it. I remember that much. Like, we were in this really cushy condo watching this and on a really great couch, and we were just laughing by the end of some of those reveals. Like the original reveal of like the brother not being the soldier instead. That was actually pretty well done as a reveal. But then we got the commander who's actually the brother. It's just like, we were just laughing at that point. We were just like, oh, of course that's how this is gonna go. And
just like one of the main villains is like,
and I remember you laughed when Julia stuck the philosopher's stone in her mouth. I remember you laughed at that.
Yeah, I guess.
And you were just like, why would she eat it?
Well, it's
just like, because Fullmetal Alchemist, that's why.
I guess that's not the first time we've seen something.
I mean, technically we had oh crap, not the Flame Alchemist, wasn't
it one?
Kimley. Kimley was the guy who had the Philosopher's Stone on his tongue. So it's not the first time we've seen it, but that thing was small. Like, it was a sliver. This was like a big rock. And by that, I mean like about as big as my hand. And she just goes, whoop. And I remember you just laughed. So other negatives that we can bring in here.
Funny how you have a scene with like Mustang and
wow, Mustang was in this movie, wasn't he?
And what's her name?
Hawkeye?
Yeah, it's like, why would you have them in there if they're not involved that much?
Well, this is actually going to go into my next negative, is like all of the plot relevant characters mean nothing in this story. Like Edward and Al were afterthoughts in their own damn movie. I'm pretty sure that they wanted to go talk to Newt Scamander right now about being an afterthought in your own damn... Well, he was an afterthought in his own damn trilogy. They were just an afterthought in their own movie. Kind of thing. And yeah, Mustang and Hawkeye were also... I think the only reason they were there was to show the corrupt military in Table City and to finally deal with them. But for some reason, like... Did he ever do anything? I don't think Mustang ever did anything.
No, except for sitting in his office. No.
Yeah. I think they had a train conversation.
Buster.
And that was about it.
And Winry was in there for a few minutes.
Yeah, Winry showed up because she has to come and fix Ed's arm. But they also had an automail guy who could have done it too. So I don't know why, but Winry was an afterthought. That's what I'm saying. All the main characters were afterthoughts in their own damn movie. Everything is based around Ashley and Julia and the people of Table City. Ed and Al are basically just wallflowers the entire time. And I'm sorry, but if it's a Naruto movie, Naruto's the focus. Even I've seen pieces of some of these movies, and I can still tell you, Naruto's the focus.
Yeah, and I just find it funny.
Even in, like, Dragon Ball Z movies, Goku's the focus. Vegeta's the focus.
And I just find it funny that Ed and Al don't, explain to Julia the consequences of...
No, they do explain the consequences.
Yeah,
they do, and nobody listens to them.
Yeah, well, I mean...
And it actually got to a point where I think they were just like, whatever. And they just stopped explaining.
Well, yeah, but it'd be just like, well, Ed could have said, well, I lost an arm and a leg, and he lost his body, so...
Well, they do explain that.
Yeah.
Because I remember Al explains that to Julia when he's in the cell.
Mm-hmm.
And she's talking to him. And so she hears, like, the price that they paid to do the taboo.
Uh-huh.
And, still okay. Like, it adds some conflict, I guess, to Julia, but ultimately she becomes super duper Mary Sue in the end, so did it really?
It's funny.
Wow, this is totally wrong. I'ma do it. So, other negatives.
Well, I'm just surprised Ed didn't just, want to take that Philosopher's Stone.
Well, because he knew what was used to make it.
Yeah, I know.
That's what they tried to do, is like... Because they tried to make it sound like, okay, they've at least figured out that to make a falafel stone, a philosopher's stone, you have to sacrifice a bunch of people to be able to do it. And at this point, Ed and Al have already decided we're not going to murder. We're not going to do this to just take the philosopher's stone. Besides, you remember, like, as soon as she did the resurrection act, they said that she had lost the powers. Mm-hmm. So double or nothing, the stone had been used at that point.
Oh, yeah.
Because you can only break the rules so many times. So, I mean, we've done the last minute reveals. We've done the fact that the main characters were not even relevant in the plot. The fact that the other thing I have to mention is, like, taking characters that you've given no emphasis on and bringing them into main focuses and making it seem like we should have been invested in them the whole time. The perfect example of this is the soldier who took Ashley's face. He is a background character when we meet him in this movie. We actually, spoiler alert, enough time has passed where this movie was so freaking forgettable, we were forgetting a lot of it before we recorded this. So we did watch a YouTube video to kind of refresh our memories on it, and I completely forgot this, but yeah, he was window dressing. The soldier was, until he takes Ashley's face. And then at that point, he's supposed to be relevant. And the movie almost makes you feel stupid for not knowing it. He's like, you did nothing to put this guy out and say he's dangerous. You did nothing to state that he's going to be a problem later on. He was just a window dressing, red shirt motherfucker, and nothing ever happened. Until he took Ashley's face, and now we're supposed to care about him. I'm sorry, but, I'm more invested in the homunculi that actually have backstory to them. Any other negatives?
No.
Okay, so out of 5, what would we give Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood, the Sacred Star of Milos? 1. 1. It's bad.
I'll give it a 2.5.
And why are you going to give it a 2.5?
Just because, like I said, I don't go walking in with high expectations.
So it was hard to wreck high expectations when you didn't have any. Is that your justification?
Well, it was kind of funny at some points.
They did have some funny moments. I do remember that. But it's Fullmetal Alchemist. Of course, it's going to have some funny moments.
Mm-hmm.
Am I going to say that some of those funny moments are better than in the actual series? Hell no. Because nothing to me will ever beat Izumi's husband and Major Armstrong flexing off and then becoming best friends right after.
Mm-hmm.
And that's an 03. I didn't even mention, that's not even Brotherhood. That's 03. I love that scene. Yeah, I'm going to give it a 1.5, 1 out of 5, because I've definitely seen Dragon Ball movies and Naruto movies and My Hero movies that have done this kind of formula better. I think, in all honesty, if I were to take a guess, the director for this was hired last minute, and he was just said, oh, all you got to do is put Edward and Alphonse in there and maybe have a Mustang cameo, and that's all you have to do. That's how easy this is, and then it flopped. And the best part is like, no Fullmetal Alchemist fan refers to this movie. That's how bad it is. It's so forgettable that I've actually had conversations with people going, oh yeah, there is a Brotherhood movie, isn't there? And in some cases, they haven't seen it either. So you can't really say that it's left a bad stain on Brotherhood. It really hasn't.
Well, I'm kind of surprised you even mentioned it. Otherwise, I wouldn't even know it was actually...
Where I mentioned it?
Yeah.
Well, because I'd only seen it in passing. I'd only seen the thumbnail on Netflix, so I knew it existed.
Oh.
But I hadn't watched it. No, this was my first viewing with you.
Oh, okay.
So and obviously, there was a reason I missed it because it wasn't relevant. So at that point, yeah, 1 out of 5, and out of the movies that we actually did watch, I mean, I'm going to say it was probably the worst of the movies that we did watch. Would you say that? Because there's another movie coming up that I remember you guys not having a whole lot of good things to say about it, but I still think this was less than that.
Which one was that?
Dead Island.
I liked it.
Yeah, so at that point, I think that this was the one that was the lowest on the totem pole. So, because out of the 6 movies that we watched, I think, yeah, this was... And especially, it was such a dud because up until that point, we had watched The Fruits Basket Prelude and the Mario Brothers movie, and both were amazing. So that was just an even bigger dud. But, really quick, as a Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood fan, would you recommend to fans to watch The Star of Milos?
If they don't care how good or bad it is, I don't care.
And if they do, you would not recommend it, is what you're saying?
Well, if they have high expectations, I wouldn't recommend it.
I wouldn't recommend it, period. I'd be like, go watch Brotherhood. You're completely fine. Unlike the 2003 movie, Conqueror of Shambhala, where I would recommend that to people, because I actually like Conqueror of Shambhala. And eventually, once we get through 2003, when it happens, we will watch Conqueror of Shambhala, because it's an interesting continuation of the story that happens there. And that'll go ahead and do it. So thank you so much, Andrea, because this is not the last time that we'll see you, because the last 2 movies you were involved with, but the next 2 are actually going to be me and Alex, the Shadow Blazer. So we will see you later on for the last 2 movies that we watched, and one of them was freaking amazing. But the next one that we have is a continuation from last year, as me and Alex the Shadow Blazer took on the sequel to Alien. We took on Aliens. Yet another sequel that James Cameron made that is amazing, and he never touched the franchise again. So we will see you guys next time for Aliens. In the meantime, if you're brand spanking new, welcome. We're happy to have you. If you're listening on YouTube, make sure to do a like and a subscribe. It really does help us out. You can also subscribe on podcasting platforms like Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon Podcasts, Player.fm, and Spotify, and leave a review on those as well. It definitely does help out. And yes, I will see you guys for Aliens, but it'll be a couple of weeks before you see Andrea again. But I guess, bye, Andrea, and we'll see you when we come back to do the last 2 movies, which I don't want to spoil just yet. So until then, have a good day or night. We'll see you then.